So I didn't think I was going to make a video on this channel like this. But here we are. I was illegally evicted. Me and my wife were illegally evicted in December of last year. That was something else. And that's not the first time I've been illegally evicted, by the way. I was illegally evicted also in 2023 from the Corn Exchange in Manchester city centre. Terrible experience. One that I never thought would happen again, but ever since then, me and my wife were living out of hotels, technically homeless, but not out on the street homeless. Managed to find a property in Rochdale, like a flat. Moved into there in 2024, the summer of 2024. And that turned out to be a terrible place to live. New build, looked nice, everything was fresh. First persons to move into that particular property that we moved into, but realised very quickly that this is not the place we want to stay. Terrible. Structurally terrible. You could hear the person next door snoring. It was like they were living in the same flat as us. You could hear people urinating in the next flat as if they were in our toilet. It was bad. Constant banging upstairs. Don't know what the person upstairs was doing. I'd knock on every week or so just to check in what's going on. The guy had a Stairmaster in his flat. He says he doesn't use it often, but literally from about 7 in the morning till about 1 a.m. there will just be this constant, and then there'll be a break of about maybe 5-10 minutes, and they'll be back again. Reported it to the management over and over and over and over again. So many investigations apparently, but nothing got done about that. But anyway, it got to the point a year and a half later where we couldn't endure it anymore. So we left. We found another property in Preston, which we had stayed at previously whilst we were homeless. It was an Airbnb at the time, and it was lovely. Back then, we stayed there for a month. This was about 2023. Stayed there for a month. A couple of times, actually, we stayed there. And when we went back there, this time on a full tenancy, again, we find out very quickly, this isn't the place we want to stay. The place was trash. And it's a shame because the first time we stayed there, the first and second time we stayed there, it was lovely. The flat was clean, everything was nice, not much noise. And in hindsight, it was a mistake to not view the flat in person. You might be like, well, why didn't you go see the flat? Well, we'd stayed there previously twice. It was nice, no problems whatsoever. So we thought, you know what, let's just book this place. Right, we're in Rochdale. Yeah! It's an effort for me to go down to Preston. In the flat in Rochdale to go and view this property. Come to realise when we get there, the flat is trash. Place isn't clean. New management have taken over. We didn't realise this. And once we reported these things, which we did immediately, we were led to believe we would get a new flat not too long after. Right? We reported it to the person on site straight away. They were like, okay, I acknowledge what you're saying. I finished my shift right now, so I can't do anything about it right now. I'm going to leave. But come Monday, because it was the weekend, we moved in on the Friday evening. Come Monday, we'll get this all figured out. So, okay, we're like, all right. We'd already paid the deposit and first month's rent at this point, so, okay. Come Monday, radio silence, can't get hold of management. Person at the desk can't get hold of management. Okay, so we're banging on about this room change, this flat change. 17 days this goes on for, going back and forth with management over emails and spare room chats and stuff like this. It was nonsense. Eventually we get to the point where, okay, they decide to give us a room change, a flat change. On the last day On the day, actually, that we were supposed to collect the keys for the new flat, they then message us saying, no, actually, there's an issue with the flat that we were supposed to move you into. We're going to have to postpone this. I was like, all right, okay, we've waited 17 days. We can wait a little bit longer. They then offered us a full refund and said that we can vacate the property that we're already in if we wanted. We denied that. We declined that, excuse me. I was like, okay. We've waited this long now. If we wanted a full refund and... If we wanted a full refund, we would have asked for one at the beginning. Right, when we realised the property wasn't up to par. But we didn't. Right, we were willing to wait for this to be sorted out. We did say if we weren't able to sort it out, yes, we'll get a full refund and we move on. But it's been over 2 weeks now, nearly 3 weeks. We've lived in this flat that the flat that they showed us in the pictures was not the flat that we got upon arrival. Put it that way. It was trash. So many things wrong with it. There was terrible drainage. There was a terrible smell coming from the drainage in the bathroom/toilet ensuite. I mean, it was funny because come Monday morning, I'm remembering now, come Monday morning, when they said they were going to figure things out, we get met with a bunch of cleaners who said they're going to come up and try and clean the room. Well, how are you going to do that when it's literally a studio flat? All of our storage, all of our stuff is everywhere. You're literally not going to be able to clean anything. What's he saying? We need to move everything out so you can clean. We should have done that before we moved in. So we refused those cleaners coming in anyway. And it wasn't the case of they would be able to clean. It wasn't that. The flat itself was terrible. Like, they would need a whole repaint. Like, the walls were marked up from corner to corner, head to toe. Black marks all over it was terrible. And this isn't the first time there's been an issue with the property. We'd seen after looking into the reviews. It was funny. On that same day that the cleaners were sent up, going on the Google reviews and seeing people had just posted their review of the place, saying similar things, talking about how the maintenance man was a creep and stuff like this, which I'll go on to that later, the maintenance guy. But talking about the maintenance guy was a creep. There was urine on there, toilet seats and things like this. Places hadn't been cleaned, hair and things everywhere. So other people had negative experiences too. It wasn't just us. It wasn't just me. So anyway, we denied the cleaners coming in. 17 days later, we finally get an agreement to move rooms. But I had a run-in with the maintenance guy on that day. I say a run-in. I was in the common area and he comes up to me and questions me being there. He's like, do you live here? I'm like, yeah. Literally show him the keys. Then he requests to check the keys to see whether or not it lines up with who I am and whether I stay there. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have given him the keys. I don't know what I was thinking, to be fair. But I gave him the keys anyway. And so he goes downstairs to the reception area to check them, supposedly. Comes back, and then he basically chucks the keys at me. Right? He doesn't pass them to me like I passed them to him. He just basically chucks them at me. And some people may have overlooked that, but I could tell there was disrespect there. So I would basically just got up and said, don't throw the keys at me. And then he starts walking up to me. He's like, who are you talking to? Who are you shouting at? And I wasn't shouting. I may have raised my voice, but I wasn't shouting at him. But I just said to him, you, don't throw the keys at me. He was like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Literally starts to get up in my face, and there's cameras there in the common area. So I'm thinking, this guy's trying to goad me into doing something stupid on camera. I'm not falling for it. So I'm telling him, I'm not going to do anything. Just don't throw the keys at me. And then he walks off. Well, before he walks off, he starts swearing. Very professional. He starts saying, I've heard about you giving SHIT to my staff. I was like, your staff? I don't even know who you are. I'd seen him before the previous time we'd stay there, by the way. And I got like a bit of a negative feeling from him then. But I couldn't really put my finger on it. But I had no interaction with him. I had no interaction with him that much, really, for me to think too much. But yeah, it was bad. He was clearly trying to goad me into something. But I just wanted to stand up for myself and say, don't throw the keys at me, which he shouldn't have done. Pass them to me like a normal human being. I'm not a dog. Like, go fetch. No. So he walks off, mimicking me. He's like, I get a message about an hour later. This is when I get a message from the management saying, there's an issue with your room, we can't move you in. The new room. So I'm like, okay. It's fine. Again, we've waited all this time. Let's just wait a few more days or however long it takes to fix that new flat. But then they offer a full refund and say that if we want to vacate the property, we can't do it. Again, we refuse this. No, we'll just wait for the new flat. About 10-15 minutes later, they're like, oh no, actually, we want you to vacate. You've had an issue. We've heard of a disturbance between you and one of our staff members. Well, no, that's not true. So bear in mind, throughout this whole time, these 17 days of waiting for this flat, I have gone back and forth with the management. And again, there may have been raised voices because, right, I'm upset. I'm annoyed. Why have you given me this flat which is not fit for purpose? Right, it's basically like, that's the kind of flat that somebody would live in if they're squatting. It's not fit for a full tenancy. Somebody who's paid. That's the thing, a lot of landlords these days, it's almost like it's a privilege to be in a flat. It's a business transaction. It's not a privilege. You make money from a tenant in exchange for the tenant getting a fit place to live, a place that's suitable for them to live. That's it. If you didn't have the tenant in your property, you would have no money. You would just have an empty building if you had no tenants, right? And that building is obviously going to be losing money over time because you're going to have to pay taxes in the UK anyway. Obviously, you have to pay taxes, maintenance, so on and so forth. So it's not as if it's a privilege, right? It's a business transaction, a mutually beneficial transaction between tenant and landlord. If one side doesn't hold up to their side of the agreement, if one side doesn't hold up to their end of the agreement, then it breaks down. Right? The tenant could obviously destroy the flat. That's not holding up to their side of the agreement to keep the flat clean. It's for when they move out and whatnot, and then the next person can move in. Likewise, if the landlord provides a flat that isn't fit for a person to live in, they have broken their side of the deal already. So that's what happened. I was going back and forth over this 17-day period with the management, with the staff. And so this maintenance guy says, I've heard about you giving the staff... Well, because of my interaction with that maintenance man, now the management are saying me and my wife have to vacate. No, that is illegal. You can't say to a tenant who has paid a deposit and first month's rent to leave in the UK. That's not a legal thing to do. So then they started saying, we've informed the police. We're going to give you 3 days to get out of the flat. 3 days. After basically uprooting ourselves from Rochdale. Uprooting ourselves from Rochdale with all of our belongings and moving into this new studio flat. Well, it's not new, but into the studio flat in Preston. No legal basis to do that whatsoever. Right, the fastest, realistically, a landlord is able to legally get a tenant out of their property is probably a couple of months, 2-3 months. That's a minimum. Generally, it takes a lot longer. They had no grounds for any kind of eviction, so they were going down an illegal route. Similarly to what happened to us back in 2020, was it 2022? Yeah, toward the end of 2022, when I was illegally evicted the first time. the management of that property in the Corn Exchange, they phoned the police. And that was a bit of a different scenario, somewhat, because it was an apart hotel. So they were claiming it's a hotel, it's not an apartment, you don't have any tenancy rights. We were claiming that we do. We've lived in the same room in the hotel/apart hotel for the past 2 and something years. We got shelter involved. We got the local council involved. Everything pointed towards a legal tenancy, whether it was written down or not. In the law, in the UK law, there is no such thing as basically a formal tenancy doesn't have to be written down. It could literally be a verbal agreement, even. Right, we had a strong case, an extremely strong case, for us living in that property as tenants. The police sided with them in that situation, and we were kicked out with all of our belongings on the street. Terrible experience. Moved into a hotel, obviously, with all of our stuff. Still working full time throughout the whole thing, by the way, at the time. Yeah, that was bad, but this happens again. Going back to this flat in Preston, everything pointed toward us having a tenancy, even more so than the first time. We literally had a formal written down tenancy. So we didn't back down from the threats of the police. We actually rang the police. I rang the police, explained the situation. The Lancashire police explicitly stated that the police would never get involved in removing somebody from the property. The police understood that there was no legal basis for that. The only way they can remove somebody from a property is with high court bailiffs. That's the only way. Have you not seen Can't Pay, We'll Take It Away? I've seen so many seasons of that when I was working in this elderly care home, because they would watch TV and that would come on all the time on one of the channels. Section 8, it doesn't mean that the moment it's served, the tenant has to leave. You have to literally wait until they've served out the notice. Then you'd have to apply to get court action, like court bailiffs involved, for them then to come out and then formally evict the tenants. Up until that day, the tenant can remain there legally. There's nothing that the landlord can do. So obviously these guys tried to bypass that with threats. Right, so we called their bluff. We literally told them, you're not going to evict us with the police. The police can't get involved in this. This is a civil matter, not a criminal matter. What is criminal, however, is you threatening us with an illegal eviction. That is actually illegal. Right? You can't break in, you can't do anything, you can't force us out. There's nothing that you can do to evict us from this property legally. A month goes by. They turn off the electrics and the water. And they say, you have to move out. However, they didn't say that. This is how sneaky they are. They claim to not know that we were still in there, even though they saw me on camera regularly leaving the building, going do some shopping and being in the common area working on my content creation videos and stuff like that. In and out of the toilets and things like that. In and out of the building, they saw me, right? I would regularly pass the reception pretty much every day. But when they turned off the electrics, which we didn't know at first, it was them doing that, and the water, they said that, oh, we thought you guys had left. Sorry about that. Well, it's not going to get turned back on now, so you're going to have to leave. We refused to leave. It was a case of me going down to the common area and doing what I needed to do, charge my phone, charge my laptop, refilling the kettle with boiling water because it was winter at the time, December period, it's very cold. So I'm there getting hot boiling water from the kettle in the common area, filling up the hot water bottle for my wife, and repeating the cycle. About 2.5 weeks in of this, they lock off access to the flat with a key fob. So I can still get in and out of I can access all the common areas and everything like that. They're only able to shut off access to the room. Well, My wife is in the room still, so she's there, right? So this way I'm able to get in and out. And that's the thing. They notice us going to the common area, back and forth, using what we need to use, and then retreating to the room still, right? After about a month, they shut off access to the common areas. That's how spiteful these people became. They even messaged me at one point. The manager, this spineless rat of a manager, I tried to see him face to face so many times. Apparently he was always out. A couple of times I'm sure he was hiding back in the office, in one of the back offices. Just refused to speak to me, always fobbing me off to one of the front-facing staff members on the front desk. Never seen him face to face, never spoken a word to him, but he was messaging me, saying, you guys have been staying there rent-free. That's all they care about, money. Just money. You've cut off the electrics and the water to tenants, and you're complaining that they've not paid rent. How twisted are you? Twisted, right? Sociopathic. Don't care about the well-being of the tenants at all. Just care about the money. Care about them having use of that room against their will. I don't care if it's, I don't care if it's you don't like us being there. Legally, you have no basis to evict us. I don't care what you do. But come to the end of the month, where they shut off access to the common areas, it just became too much. That same day we left, because, you know what I'm saying? They literally shut off access to the water supply. Like, they had a common area. You had a bathroom in the common area, sinks and stuff like that. You could fill up the water bottle. I'm literally flushing our toilet with water that I'd filled up from the kettle in the common area every day, multiple times a day. Right, like I'm living in some third world country. Except I don't have to walk miles and miles for water. Obviously, I'm just walking downstairs to the common area. But still, this is supposed to be a first world country. You're shutting off access to basic human needs. You're trampling on people's basic human needs. Trampling on people's rights. We've paid for this flat. Yet you're going to cut off the utilities. So, again, we left. We moved to the Travelodge in Preston. Travelodge Preston North. Right, homeless. But before we left, we informed the council, Preston Council, of what these landlords were up to. Council came out pretty quickly, thankfully, actually. But unfortunately, they did nothing to help us. They came out, they acknowledged the property should not be like this. Right? There should be electric and water flowing to the property for us to use. It's illegal. They acknowledged that. They fully acknowledged that it's illegal what the landlord was doing. So they spoke to the landlord, or the manager, who was speaking on the landlord's behalf, and told him, well, you need to turn it on. The manager refused. And so, without going too much into the laws regarding this, essentially what they could have done was serve the landlord or the manager with a notice of some sort, which would give them 28 days to turn the water on or off, or to turn the water and electrics back on, or they would be hit with a massive fine. The council told us that we decided not to do that because it's a serious thing what you guys are experiencing right now. We think it's best to get you out of that property ASAP instead. There's no point serving these guys with a notice of any kind because they'll probably just extend it and wait it out for the 28 days anyway. You guys are probably going to need to move out before then. Well, they were wrong in hindsight. We stayed there for a month or so because we were getting water and electrics that we needed from the common area, which was open 24/7. But the council said we can move you out to a hostel instead. Well, that's no good for us because again. So we refused that. We said, no, it's alright, we'll sort it out ourselves. Again, they shut off access to the common area after around a month of us living like this, with no water and electrics. So we ended up moving out to a hotel in Preston. This was January at the beginning of this year. We did this. And we've been homeless ever since, moving from hotel to hotel. So I've experienced, in the past 5 months, how many hotels? About 5 or 6 different travel lodges, something like that. Went to about 5 different JD gyms in the meantime. Because throughout this whole time, I'm trying to stay active, trying to stay fit, training, trying to make content. TikTok, YouTube, not too much Instagram, don't really use it as much, but TikTok and YouTube mainly. I've got ideas still, and I've got footage that I've shot for said ideas. But it's gotten to the point now where things are becoming too on top. It's just a whole nother level of stresses. So I thought, you know what, let me just document this. Let me put this out there. I know that people relate to other people going through struggles. I do it myself. It's more interesting at times to see somebody going through something and then potentially coming out on the other side. I'm not going to try and say that my situation is hopeless, right? I'm thankful that we have a roof over our heads still, like we're living in a hotel. It's not ideal at all. It's very expensive. It's taking everything. I want to be able to get into a new property, an actual rental, rather than paying for hotels all the time. And obviously making sure that the new rental that we move into is structurally sound. There's not going to be anywhere near as much as noise as we experienced and endured at the last place in Rochdale. Yeah. It's crazy. And so I'm putting this video out there to document my journey. This is where I'm at right now. Where I want to be in the future is, of course, ideally making money from the videos that I make whilst being able to tell the stories I want to tell. The creative stories I want to tell. I have many ideas, as do a lot of people in this industry. And I'd love to be able to tell them. I'd love to be able to create them. Put them out there on the screen for people to see and to view. Well, this is taking precedence right now. It's got to. If I can just document this journey, if I can do candid talks like this, put myself out there, maybe, hopefully it could inspire somebody else also, and also hopefully somebody else can relate to this. Maybe somebody else is going through an extremely rough time, and seeing somebody else going through something similar can help them push through. It does for me. It does for me. Because I've been working on this content thing on this particular channel since 2024, is it? No, I started working on my first video for this channel in 2023, I believe. And I'm a one-man team. So I'm doing everything myself, filming, scripting, voiceovers. Obviously AI is becoming more and more prominent now, so that does help my workflow. I've implemented that into my workflow tremendously. But I'm doing everything myself, the editing. Editing is my primary skill set. It's what I've been doing since college. Right, technically, maybe even high school. When they had the VGA cameras, when the VGA first camera phones came out, I was in year 8 or 9. Was it 14 years old. Got my first video camera phone. And then there was an editing software on that phone. I remember editing a story of my mate getting bullied at the time. This was in year 8, I believe. And editing his comeback. I remember sent it around the school in Bluetooth. Put my credits at the end. People like, oh, is that your video? That was funny. But that's the first time I got a taste of video making. Got into college. Film studies and media studies was a subject I chose. And I excelled in. I remember being the director, the scriptwriter, and the cameraman for AS studies of filmmaking, or media studies it was, because I was in a 4-man group and my 3 classmates, they didn't really have as much of an interest in it as me. I was very passionate. They were like, actually, you take care of everything, right? You do all that, mate. And I was glad to, did everything. Got us all an A grade for that project. I was very pleased with myself. But man, I've been doing this for years. Sitting there on Final Cut Pro. It wasn't a MacBook, not the MacBook, but on the Mac at the time in college, sitting on there for hours, just editing away. I was also the video editor for my 2nd year project at college. My mates at the time, they put me in charge of that for our music video. Got to uni, did filmmaking and screenwriting, one of the two, got a degree in that, ended up doing a master's also in film production. Got my 2-1 in that, on the merits in that, which is an equivalent of a 2-1, I believe. So I've been doing videos and documentaries and stuff like that for years now, and obviously YouTube and social media back then were a lot different to how it is today. It's a lot harder now to break out. And the first video I've done on this channel, which you'll be able to see if you ever decide to check, feel free to check it out if you want. But it's a 2-hour video, and that took me about a year and a half to make. That was my most ambitious, longest project I've ever done. And again, I did it all on my own. Scripting, subtitles, voiceovers, going out and trying to meet people, stop people on the street for interviews. The editing was... that was the first time I ever felt like I stopped enjoying editing, to be fair. That project changed my outlook on editing. And I've done videos, like, I've done long videos since then. I did another hour-long documentary on a similar topic, which didn't take as long. I sped up the process. A lot of it came down to the laptop that I had at the time. It was terribly slow, and that was a painstaking process. Hated a big portion of that. Oh my goodness. Oh my days. Hated that. And ever since getting those projects out that are on my channel right now, I've kind of been traumatized almost from the editing process. Again, it's the process I excel at the best, and it's the process I enjoy the most. But I've somewhat been traumatized from that project. Burnout, if you will, that I've not fully recovered from. But I think a big part of it is because of also everything I'm going through right now. And it's a shame because a lot of this, in hindsight, certain things I did which I wouldn't have done back then. But regardless, I'm in this situation right now and I'm documenting everything. The chaos, the negativity. Right? I'm done pretending that I've got my life together. I don't think I ever really did pretend. Again, I was doing stories that were centered around myself on this channel. That's why I said I don't think I was ever going to make a video like this. That's centered around myself because I wanted to keep myself out of it. I wanted to do documentaries on topics related to social issues and other stories that you can see on my channel right now. Anyway, nothing to do with me. Even if I relate to certain topics, the central themes of them have nothing to do with me. So, what's happening in my life right now, as I've laid everything out for you, you can probably understand why it's difficult for me to create content, creative ideas that I want to implement on my channel. It's interesting because I remember watching this guy, Spencer Cornelia. He's a scam buster YouTuber. Basically makes videos exposing finance gurus and all sorts of different scammers in the finance space, crypto space on YouTube. And he was involved in a lawsuit that's only just been resolved after 3 years or so, maybe 4 years it's been for this guy. Throughout the entire time, he's been making content on YouTube, but he got to a point where he was like, guys, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. I'm coming out now with a video, like, I need your help. I'm going to put out a GoFundMe because this guy has basically been draining my finances for the past few years, trying to silence me. But somebody who I interviewed on my channel said something negative about this guy, who ended up suing me for interviewing the guy. And he said, Spencer Cornelia was saying, he was like, I've been struggling coming up with ideas, trying to make content for my channel, but I've had to just push through it regardless because of where I'm at. It's draining, but what other choice do I have? But it's gotten to the point where I need you guys' help. I'm going to put out a GoFundMe. If you can donate, if you can, feel free. This is what he was saying, right? Because the struggles of his personal life were taking up so much of his mental space that he was stifled when it came to making content for his channel. So this is what's going on with me right now. Ideally, I want to get over this hump. I can see a light at the end of this tunnel. That's the thing. I'm not trying to say my situation is hopeless. I can see a light at the end of the tunnel, but I just wanted to get this video out there, get my thoughts out there, because I believe this will help me, and ideally, it would help other people too. Right? Everybody goes through struggles. Struggles are not, you know what I'm saying? Struggles are a part of life, literally. Some go through more than others, obviously. Everyone has different levels, but everybody goes through them. Trials and tribulations are not, they don't discriminate. So, I will get over this hump, right? My main goal is I want to get back to the more creative ideas that I have, short film ideas that I have, TV episodes, not TV, but webisode ideas that I have, documentary ideas that I have, documentary ideas that I've shot footage for, that I've done interviews for already. But if I'm going to incorporate more personal content, and if it's going to help me clear my mind out, then I will. So thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. Take care.